Hello everyone, welcome to Interior Psychology. Today I'm going to interview the psychologist Mandy Seligman. She's a social and developmental psychologist. She's as well the wife of Dr. Martin Seligman, the father of positive modern psychology. Mandy, thank you so much for joining this interview. I have to say it's such an honor, and I have to thank Dr. Martin Seligman for making this happen. I was not expecting it to go in this way, but I believe in things that are meant to be.
Right.
Okay, so to start, I'd like to introduce you. You are a social developmental psychologist. You are the wife of Dr. Martin Seligman, the father of positive modern psychology and pioneer. We will talk today about childhood environment and the impact that the childhood environment have in the way we currently grasp the space, perhaps by feeling, by senses. And we're going to try to link this with art and humanities. So we know there is little scientific research in this, but positive psychology is starting to do this research. Yeah. I heard as well that you are the muse of Dr. Martin Seligman in positive psychology. Yeah.
That's what he says. He does say that.
Yeah. Perhaps it's the truth. And that's why I want to get to know more about you and your heritage. So if we start talking about place attachment and identity, I need to know where you born and where did you grow up?
So actually I was born in London, but I grew up in South Wales. So a lot of my family were farmers. Mm-hmm. They lived in a small village in Wales. So I spent a lot of time in farmhouses and small communities where everybody knew everybody. So that's where I started. And then as I grew older, I spent more time in London because I was a teenager and I wanted to be, where all the exciting stuff was. But I've taken my own children back to Wales a lot.
Each other and to interact with each other. You miss that?
No, not well. I think so my theory is really that we take some things with us and we leave some things behind. So I think what's really interesting is to figure out as individuals, what are the pieces that we take with us when we move and what are the pieces that we leave behind. And so, that tells me a lot about what do we need as people? What is it we're trying to recreate? What is it that we want to give away? And so I think personally in my own home, I want to have the things that I value to give to my children. And I'm sure they'll have things that they didn't like, and so they won't want to recreate that. But, when I've thought about it, and I think this is a really interesting question, what are the things that are most important to us? What do we recreate? What does that tell us about ourselves? And I think that it's really important for our own comfort and happiness to sort of think about that. I often think about, so a lot of the things I have, they're about love and comfort and connection. And how do I recreate the good pieces without the pieces that I wasn't so happy about?
Yeah, but there were more happy things that you try to remember those ones and bring them with you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and now I live in America. So, if you come to my house, it looks like a little piece of England. There's, it's painted black and white like a Tudor house. There's a little rose garden. At one point, we even had Old English sheepdogs. So it's very much like a little piece of England in America.
So you agree that your childhood environment has impacted the way you currently live, design your home?
Hugely. Yeah, hugely. Even down to, you know, the kind of food that we have. So I have, you know, a lot of teas. I get from, you know, wherever I can, I get English food. My kids grew up with English food. And because they were homeschooled, they all grew up with English accents as well. So yeah, it's a little bit of England in the middle of Philadelphia.
I have to say this is very courageous. You have to perform a lot of bravery to do homeschooling to 5 children.
Well, you know, when I got married, my husband was traveling a lot. And so I was traveled with him, and then we traveled with 1 child, and then we traveled with 2, and then with 3. And it just kept going. And I realized that, you know, being out in the world and seeing the world, that's a huge education. And my kids were, they were very social kids. They were very bonded to each other, but, you know, they saw the world. I think they have fewer prejudices because they've been everywhere and seen every kind of person. So they're much more accepting of the world, and they know that there are different ways to live in it. And also, you know, I mean, we could go to science museums, art museums, you know, everything, anywhere we wanted to. So the traveling, in some ways was hard, especially when we got to 5 kids. But my parents would actually go with me. So it ended up being a huge family, but it was, you know, it was intergenerational in a way that I think is really good for everybody, like the grandparents and the children together. I think it helped everybody.
It was a tribe, all of you together. It's your tribe. Yeah, I understand.
A very big tribe, yeah.
Which is amazing, you know, because perhaps you were feeling lonely, but you could never be lonely because you were always with your kids and your tribe. And this is how we thrive in life.
Yeah.
Okay, to switch a little bit to talk more about positive psychology. You know, in the light of a pandemic, comes in handy to build some strategies, interventions to support us to human flourishing. Could you tell me a bit of those strategies?
Well, so I think, you know, I think for me at least, positive psychology is a lot about our connections to each other. You know, I think a lot of the, I think the thing that positive psychology has really told us is that so much comes down to the quality of the relationships we have with our nearest and dearest, our friends, you know, and not like, it's not about, you know, likes on Instagram or, you know, social media, because those are very kind of threadbare relationships. So what we really need are good quality relationships, you know, not that many, 4 or 5 maybe. I always tell my kids, if you have 4 or 5 really good friends, you're doing well. So it's really about feeling supported, like your tribe, as you say. And so I think the pandemic has been, for those people that have a tribe, I think it has been a time to step back and appreciate that and maybe enjoy it more, maybe build it better. I think the people that have really suffered have been the people without that tribe. You know, elderly people. I think there's so many people that have suffered so badly from lack of connection. So that's the first thing. In order to get through it, I have thought that it's really been seeing what is possible. Like, we all have these huge limits now that we didn't have in the past. So I don't always think that limits are bad. I think we can learn something from that. We could just kind of learn to make the best of it. So as a photographer, you know, you don't go out with I don't know, 10 lenses. If you go out with 10 lenses or 5 cameras, you'll sit there forever wondering what to do, like how to shoot that mountain. But if you have one camera and one lens, you have to kind of make the best of it and, learn what you can do with what you've got. So for me, the feeling is in the pandemic, it was very much, okay, this is the way the world is. We can't do anything about that. So how can we make the best of it, see what's important, maybe make some things better in our lives. And that's really how I talk to my kids about it. Like, how can we not always get something out of it? Because sometimes, it was pretty depressing for a while there, and I think we need to validate those feelings that we're kind of really feeling loss. Even the people that did well, we lost something. So I think validating the loss and then saying, okay, well, we don't want to stay in that place. So what can we do to make some lemonade out of these lemons? And for myself, as a photographer, I had so many trips planned and classes planned, and all of a sudden it was gone. I couldn't do anything. So, I was sad for a while, and then I started thinking, okay, what can I do? And I started going back and rereading things that I had forgotten about. And, it was kind of a regrouping of what is still possible, what do I still enjoy? And what are the things that I'm still, grateful for? So positive psychology has a whole bunch of exercises, like they call it hunting the good, what's still good, gratitude, kindness, gift of time, all of these things, building connections, good relationships, and piece by piece, kind of deciding, okay, so these are the limits. What can I do to still make progress somewhere? Feel like I'm accomplishing something today. In the beginning, feeding all of my kids was like a huge deal because everybody was in my house. So a family of 9 people in a pandemic is really like difficult to feed. But after I got that kind of down, then it was like, okay, so what little accomplishment can I get today? And then also, I think some of the mindfulness really did help too. And I'm not a person that can sit and meditate. I'm just horrible at that. I'm terrible. I've tried to do it. It's like yoga. I've tried, but that's not me. So, but I find if I go swimming, that's a meditative kind of experience. Because
like like the flow?
I don't know. I think it's like I need to be actually driving as well as meditative, because it's like I have to have something to do with my hands but nothing with my brain. So actually folding laundry is a good thing. So, if I stand and fold laundry, I'm busy, but my head is somewhere else. So I find that meditative.
Yeah, perhaps because our hands are busy and we are doing something that we know, we memorize how to do it with our hands. So our brain can disconnect from this worried, it's not worried anymore, so can fly a little bit more.
Yeah.
So this was the next question, to talk about mindfulness. And in the eyes of Mandy Seligman, in your eyes, how would you define mindfulness?
So I think there's 2 ways that I use mindfulness. One, like I say, is doing the laundry or driving, doing something automatic with my hands, and then allowing my head to just go wherever.
Go away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I actually took up knitting as well. So I used to knit a long time ago, and during the pandemic, I started knitting again. And that was very, like, you're sitting there, you're knitting, you're just doing it, plain knitting, but your head's in all kinds of other places. So there's that. but the other thing is kind of the opposite is focusing your attention on something so that there's no other distractions. That also I feel is a kind of mindfulness, which like that sort of laser focus. And that I think I get through photography.
Like when you are doing, taking photos,
Yeah.
the time passes fast for you and you don't want to get interrupted.
That's more, yes. I mean, I think it's both flow and mindfulness. So yes, flow is when time stops. And for me, that's more the process of producing something. You know, it's like when I get home and I put the photos on the computer and then I play with it, or I print it and I do things like that. That's a flow process. But the actual going out and taking pictures for me is more mindful, because I'm paying attention and I'm really just like focused on what's there and what I'm doing. For me, that's a mindfulness process.
I love it. I just love it because it's difficult to talk about mindfulness and not have the same feeling as you. Like, it's difficult for us to really concentrate on see a blue light and forget about everything else. The mind is like a monkey. So perhaps by performing some kind of activity that we have passion about and we just immerse in it, we can flow, be mindful. But which is great because we just put them together and help to understand that we might have difficulties by doing it alone.
Yeah, I have tried mindfulness. I've tried meditating, and I'm not very good at it. But like I say, the two processes. So there are different. I find them different uses at different times. Mm-hmm. There are times when I need to kind of escape and just, you know, give my mind a break, and then there are other times when I need to take a break but let my mind free. So those are just different times for me.
And talking about times, your collection of art, your photography, they have two different timelines. So I see your house, your grandparent house, I think it was, and then I see a couple. I think it's you and your husband. And then I see your kids. So it has different timeline, different timeline that you bring together, and you make a beautiful collection of art that at the beginning I thought it was paint because it looks so beautiful, and I was talking about the age of the color of the paint, and then it's a picture, and I'm a photographer. I'm like, oh my god, it's a picture, and it's so amazing. The collection is called Seeing Happy, right?
Actually, that collection is called Touching Happiness.
Touching Happiness.
And that was an online show in New York. And actually, that's one thing during the pandemic. So I'd hoped to have a show at the gallery in New York. And of course, then the pandemic hit and I couldn't do that. And so I was sad for a while about that. But then, you know, then they started talking about, well, we can do it online. So ended up being an online show, which more people could see, you know, friends from everywhere could see their show online. So there was like a little benefit to
your happiness.
Sorry?
It like boosts your happiness.
Yeah.
Like a type of savoring that I was reading, that when you are not doing so well in life and then something good happened, even though you were not doing so well, this little thing at the end that changes your mood, you know, and makes you savoring this victory, and that, okay, well, you know what, now I'm doing this and it's helping me thrive. So you feel even more happy.
Yeah. So to get back to the photos, so that was with the Touching Happiness series. This was really about I think actually the picture that you're talking about, there was one with two people in front of an old house. That was my parents, supposedly my parents. There were other pictures that the kids all like to say, well, that was them or that was somebody else. But it was people, the family, and then the wider community, friends. And the idea being that I think we all have a history and we all come from somewhere. And I think it's very important, like we say with the house and the decorating, I think it's important to recognize our heritage and where we come from and what that's given us. The idea of standing on the shoulders of giants, I like that idea, but it's because we all stand on the shoulders of people that have gone before. And when I'm talking about connecting, I don't mean just connecting with people that are, here and now. I mean connecting across, countries, places. That's one way, but there's also connecting across time. So connecting to the people that have gone before us. And I find that very comforting, like, to have my grandmother's vase or, my father's crucifix. Those are comforting things to me. So the touching happiness was about intergenerational commonalities and things that just like run through.
And all the things that at the end of the day make you. And when you look at this collection of art, what do you feel?
Complete. Like it's complete in and of itself. So I sort of
puzzle of your life that you complete.
Yeah, and it was sort of it felt like putting together everything. So often with the project, I will finish it and say that's done. But sometimes it's just because I got kind of tired of doing it, and so it's 20 pictures and it's done. But this was more, it felt complete in of itself, that it was actually finished. There wasn't anything I could add to it.
Yeah. So you feel complete, which is amazing because, again, that brings more happiness. Can we share these pictures as a link, or it's not allowed yet to share? What do you do with this art? You sell it? You offer it? What do you do with this art?
It's actually on my website. So you can just, if you share the link to my website, it's called Touching Happiness, and it's right up there. Yeah. So you could just see it.
Okay, you do this as to go beyond, to offer it to people to go beyond what?
I think, so this gets into something else. So the website, so I think that the art itself, so the process makes me happy, and producing it makes me happy. But then I think there comes a point at which you want to share that. The real reason I started looking for galleries to share my art was really to share in other people's conversations to feel like a community of artists. We sit, we talk about each other's photographs, we get inspiration. It's a community kind of thing. So that's why it's there, really. I mean, like the joy of being able to show it when other people show their things, I think that's just the sharing of it is really important.
This is very kind. It's very kind. Yeah. Perhaps people will sell this art. You are thriving just by doing the art of kindness. Again, you are always inside positive psychology. You are always in the middle of positive psychology in everything you do. And it's amazing because you are a pioneer of positive psychology and you talk about it, but you live.
I think that's really important. Yeah. So I think that's when, when my husband talks about being the muse, I think it's that I think positive psychology is something you really have to live, because if you don't live it, you don't really know the small pieces, and it can easily go wrong. So like, for instance, I think that humility and gratitude are really important. But you can't just give a blanket suggestion, and say, well, humility and gratitude, be grateful. It doesn't work that way, because, like, there are times in life when it's not good to be too grateful. Like, there's a big difference between gratitude and humility and helplessness, but they're very close. So if you think about it, for instance, when your kids are leaving home, going out into the world, you don't want them to constantly be feeling grateful and humble about their accomplishments. Like, you want them to own it, because it's hard to go out into the world. You want them to own it, and so they can, like, gather their strength and go out and do things in the world. If they feel too grateful, it tears away at their confidence, I think. So let them be, like, arrogant and whatever as they go out into the world, and then maybe later on they'll say, oh, actually I got a lot of help there. So I think living positive psychology is really important, so that you see the nuances. And nothing is black and white. So there's a lot of instances where, grit, for instance. Grit is a big thing in positive psychology, the ability to keep persisting. And
Resilience, can we say, is also similar to resilience, or no?
What, grit?
Mm-hmm.
Grit and resilience are quite different, I think. Grit is just the ability to keep on. It's like persistence, keep on going even when things get rough. And I think that's good, but there are times when keeping on going is not good, that you really need to know the difference, that you need to step off that ladder and give up and go and do something else. And that could be resilience. It can be resilience to, like, say, okay, this isn't working, I'm going to take the hit and go and do something else. So resilience, I think, is more about being able to keep on going after failures.
Okay.
But it also includes giving up and moving on, letting go, moving on. So I think it's a little different to grit, although there, as you say, there are overlaps.
And in the email that you sent me, you wrote for me, mindfulness comes for you as the importance of balancing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you say connection versus quiet time, play versus work, especially in COVID times, inside versus outside, the need for green. I really love this. Functional versus non-functional beauty. History, life story versus future.
Yeah. I think everything is about balance, right? So appreciation versus independence. Connection is great, but during the pandemic, I think one of the things that we all suffered from is a little too much connection. Like, we all needed to get away from each other at a certain points.
Do you believe all this pandemic maybe is going to lead us towards a connection with our inner self and bigger things, that we connect with something bigger than us, and that was something that we really needed? That's like the positive part of the pandemic.
I think it can do, and I think if we're aware of it, but I think we have to work hard to not just jump back into things as things open up. I think, we're all excited about, being able to go and see other people or do things that we used to do. And I think it would be easy to forget some of the things we've learned, maybe. So I think we have to work at remembering the benefits, because I think part of it is that the benefits come through harder work. So for instance, I have a stupid example, but like I got a puppy, of course, during the pandemic, and she's a very large Bernedoodle. And so she needs grooming. And of course, it's easier to take her to the groomers, but during the pandemic, we couldn't do that. So I would groom her. And it was really very, it was very
Challenging.
challenging, but it was also, you know, it was really cute. Like I had, you know, she was very loving and it was fun to groom her, but it took forever. So when the pandemic ends, will I send her to the groomers or will I groom her? You know, and I think that I will probably do less sending her out and more do at home, but I'm not going to do all of it because it's really hard work. So I think if we can compromise a little bit and spend a little bit more time on the inside and a little bit less, I think that would be good. Because we're not going to totally, you know, go back to doing everything by hand. That would be hard.
I heard Dr. Martin said, my wife, Mandy, we were thinking about getting puppies and she decided that now is the time. So we got puppies. So I recommend everyone to get puppies for this pandemic because it really makes you happy. It does.
Well, puppies are just unconditional love, right?
Yeah.
I think that says a lot. I think it tells us a lot about what we actually value. We just want somebody there at the end of the day.
So how many puppies you have at home?
3.
Oh my God, a lot of work. I used to have 3. It's a lot of work and a lot of hair everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, changing gears a little bit. Now, you wrote about the elements of home. And you put security, a safe harbor in the storm of life. And I love it. I have to read it all because if you're going to miss this in the interview, I have to read. A place to retreat to in times of pain. A place to connect and celebrate with family and friends. A quiet place to unwind and think or plan. A place to play. A place to breathe. A place to eat comfort food in comfortable company. A place to sit and curl up with sofas and blankets. A place to feel warm and accepted just by the way you are. A place that grounds you and connects you to the past and the present. Friends and family, past and present. A place to tell the world something about you when you invite in. A place that works well and has all you need. A place you personally find beautiful. Let's put beauty into it because I believe beauty, whatever you consider that to be, make us happy. That's what you said. So, for example, I really am interested to know this part. What are you thinking when you say a place to tell the world something about you when you invite them in? Is that the English design that is coming with you everywhere you go? For example, in house.
Yeah, I think there's that, but it's also, I mean,
way more than that.
There's a lot more than that. I mean, you know, I think it shows what you value.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, I think in my house, you know, right now there's a lot of leaves outside, so the dogs are dragging all the leaves in, and you know, it's a mess. So the floors, we have to vacuum a lot. But you know, it's like, what do I care about? I care less about the leaves on the floor and more about having the comfort of the dogs. You know, again, it's a balance, right? So if I had, when my children were small and crawling around, then I would, that was different, you know. I had to keep things a little cleaner on the floor. But now that I don't have little babies running around, you know, I don't mind a little bit more dirt on the floor or things like that.
Why with the kids? Perhaps with the kids you were more strict,
I was
more OCD, and now with the dogs you are more flexible?
No, it's more that I didn't want so much dirt on the floor if I had babies crawling. But now I don't mind it as much because that's just what comes with the dogs. So I think it's just more about, it shows you something about, you know, what you value, what you care about. So like we have a big kitchen with a big, the kitchen is really the main room in the house. And why is that? Because we sit and eat in there, and you know, that's where a lot of mornings and evenings start and end. Things like that. It tells you what's most important. You know, I've been in homes which are spectacular and beautiful, and what they care, you know, what it shows is that they care about things like the beautiful art. Well, I do have art, but I can't have anything to things that can't get damaged because I have dogs and kids, you know.
And I believe this, what you say, is so true, Mandy, because in design, people forget this coherence between what you are and what you want to show. Okay, what you want to show, or what you want the space to be beautiful, but sometimes when you go into some spaces there is no transition at all, so you feel, yeah, it's a beautiful home, but it's cold. I don't feel like there is no blanket. It's like you right here something that makes a lot of sense. So you put a place to sit and curl up with blankets and cushions in the sofa. Modern design will have these flat, squarish faces that you really don't feel like I'm going to sit there and curl.
Yeah.
You feel like you're going to sit stiff and stay there, not to damage anything.
Yeah.
And not even to imagine the idea to bring dogs to that space.
So I was once in a beautiful home. It was stunningly beautiful, just stunning. And everything was white. And I took my two youngest kids, and I was so terrified that they would do anything.
But they did.
And they did. They brought sand in, and I was like, oh, God.
They did, of course they do.
Of course they did, but you know, so.
And Mandy, for all the mothers that are homeschooling right now, perhaps there is some moms that find themselves not coping very well with homeschooling because it's kind of by force. They feel it's by force. They didn't take that decision that you had the time to take, and it was your decision, so it was fine. But some parenting itself, it become a little bit hard at home with these regulations. What will be your advice?
I think that we're in a really difficult time right now. And I think the most important thing, I think for me at least, the important thing is kids will learn, and kids learn when they're interested and happy and not afraid to fail. So I think pushing the work, pushing the books, sometimes can have a bad effect. Like you're just too stressed. Everybody's stressed. So I think sometimes just closing the books and going to play is a much better idea, because, you know, I think listening to kids is the most important thing. So, you know, we have a lot of ideas. We don't always know what the kids are thinking, and they often have ideas and you think, oh, they're right. So I have this really weird example where my kids, my older girls, loved Barbie dolls. And, you know, I often worried about, you know, culture and body image and all of that. And of course, they had these really, really skinny Barbie dolls. So when they came out with the chubbier Barbie doll. I thought, this is great. We're going to buy that. Anyway, I remember going into the store and showing them the chubbier Barbie doll. They didn't want it. And I was so afraid that they had this thin ideal that we had to be really skinny to be successful and beautiful. And my mind was just going crazy. Anyway, I didn't say anything, and I just bought them, what they wanted, and we were fine. And later I asked them, why didn't you like the other Barbie doll? And they said, none of our clothes would fit.
You see?
It was just so simple. So when they bought out the clothes for the larger Barbie doll, that was fine. They didn't care. So I think we have to be careful not to put our interpretations on them, because they hadn't even thought about what we're thinking about. And sometimes things that stop them working or stop their success is something that we had no idea about. So if we listen, put the books away, take the time out to go out and talk to your children, but really just listen. I think taking a break from the pushing and the stress, I think, and talking about what you're trying to do, I think is better. But listening to the kids.
Not to impose our beliefs into them, and assume this is what they believe too.
Yeah, and also, we don't know. Sometimes the kids just need to be listened to. And I think kids are very resilient, and I think they're very, they learn.
Before we finish this interview, because we have so much to talk, I think if we do 10 interviews, we will never finish. This is so interesting. There is any books, any reference sources that besides your website, any book that had changed your life that can help us, for this audience that we have as architects and designers, to try to apply positive psychology interventions that we can apply maybe at home? Maybe
for me, my own books that inspire me, there's a photographer called Michael Kenner, and he's British, and he I first discovered him a long time ago, and he is able to take, he's inspiring to me because he can take everyday stuff, everyday views, and make beautiful images from them. And for me, that's very inspiring, to be able to see in everyday things, see the beauty, the humanity, the mystery sometimes. So, I mean, one of the things that I realized when I was thinking about this interview is that, there are so many people have so many different ideas of what's beautiful, what they need, what they can afford. I'm not sure how you put, I think a lot of it is what you put on the building, right? So, for instance, we often rent a house at the shore during the summer, and I'll go there before everybody gets there, and sometimes some of the houses aren't as well maintained as others. And I remember this one house I went to, and there was a lot of things that weren't working well, and I was very disappointed. I felt bad. And then my kids arrived, and all of a sudden it was transformed into this wonderful place, because the kids were playing, and the older kids were just helping with the little kids, and putting the people in transformed something. So I think, instead of, when you think about design, when you think about how it's going to be used and the good things that can be put into a design that can that produce happiness and beauty and everything. So I think, I don't know, I think that's a long way of saying it's what goes into it on top of the bare minimum that really is what makes it a home. Like, it was a book that I produced, yeah.
Can I show a little bit of it?
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows, it's here.
Yeah.
I will type all the, I think that's your, you see, I had it in your grandparents' home, I think.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
The one, and
That,
you write next to it
yeah.
what you think. So it's really, and this is also amazing.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah.
So
my kids, when they saw that, they wanted to know, and my kids wanted to know which image was them. So it's very interesting how even my mom was like, this is me and your dad, you know, everybody wanted to see themselves in these pictures, which I think is really interesting.
And this is also like, wow, like I can't stop looking at this. Oh my God, it's difficult.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
The tiny couple under the tree. And what's the name of this picture? The name is
Savoring. Savoring, yeah. So that's supposedly my husband and son.
Perma.
Yes, I do. I think that positive psychology has a way of really focusing on the things that are important. So PERMA is, according to my husband's theory, positive emotion, engagement, which is flow, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Personally, I think that so much of that comes down to where we grow up, how we grow up, the families that we have. I think that is the psychology. You know, I think secure base, good attachments, good connections is a base to a lot of these things. But I think PERMA really focuses you on what the things are that are important. So accomplishing things is important. You know, feeling connected to the world, meaning, why something that we do is meaningful. That's important. Like, we need to feel like what we contribute is appreciated, or that it has some effect in the world. And actually, positive emotion, like I personally think that smiling and being pleasant is a good thing. I mean, I know that there are a lot of grumpy people in the world that do just fine, but for me, I just think that you can get the same message across with a smile on your face, and it just helps things. You know, it's kind of like, you know, the Mary Poppins, you know, with a spoonful of sugar. I really think that a smile just eases the way, and a little bit of a little bit of joy in the world helps us. I think beauty in the world helps us. So all of the positive things, seeing what's positive, I think just helps us to deal with everything else. It's like a little light in the darkness.
Wow, Mandy, this interview has been amazing. I really love everything you said. Open yourself just like this, spontaneous, to share with us all this knowledge. I really hope to get to know more about you. And if anybody wants to contact you, email you, can I put your email address under the?
Yeah. Well, actually, yes, it's on the website. So if you just put the website, that's fine. But yeah, I wanted to thank you for the interview, because it's the questions that you sent me really made me stop and think about a lot of things. So I think that there's a huge amount to be talked about in this area. You know, what makes, when you design somewhere. And I think work in the future was going to be different. I think homes in the future will be different after this pandemic. So thank you for asking me. I'm glad that we could actually sit and talk about it.
It's a pleasure, and I believe in things that are meant to be, because